Good afternoon and welcome to this Monday's edition of Your Turn. I'm Sherre Miller Bishop, your host, and we've got a great show up for you today. We're going to kind of do a couple of things. I'm going to just tell you right off the bat. I want to mention a little bit about football. We got to mention that very briefly. I want to update you on the impeachment process, where things stand and what we can expect. And then I pretty much want to kind of go off the beaten path, as I often like to do. I want to talk about addiction. We're hearing far too much about addiction in the African American community, and it's just a problem. And we're hearing about suicide and that sort of thing. So I want to cap it with that. But I don't want to go any further today without saying something about an important holiday today. And that is that today is the Martin Luther King holiday. We celebrate it today and had a lot of events going on locally, and where people here in Nashville, Tennessee, across the state of Tennessee, and across the country recognize this Martin Luther King holiday as a day to recognize the phenomenal influence that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had on civil rights in this country. And I actually want to start off with a little bit of an excerpt. Dr. King was known to, of course, because he was a minister, but he was known to take biblical scripture and to humanize it and weave it in a very genius way into his sermons and his public appearances where he spoke to drive his points home. And with this particular excerpt, I like it because it's visionary for where we are today in America. We live in such an emotionally charged, racially polarized society. And Dr. King was speaking under the topic of where do we go from here? And he takes the scripture. You remember where Nicodemus was asking, what must I do? And so this juror goes to ask, what must I do? And here's Dr. King's explanation of that. And you'll easily see that he's really talking about how America needs a heart transplant. Take a listen.
He said something altogether different because Jesus realized something basic. That if a man will lie, he will steal. And if a man will steal, he will kill. So instead of just getting bogged down on one thing, Jesus looked at him and said, Nicodemus, you must be born again. In other words, your whole structure must be changed. A nation that will keep people in slavery for 244 years will thingify them and make them things. And therefore, they will exploit them and poor people generally, economically. And a nation that will exploit economically will have to have foreign investments and everything else, and it will have to use its military might to protect them. All of these problems are tied together. What I'm saying today is that we must go from this convention and say, America, you must be born again.
Isn't that amazing? That is visionary. That is visionary. We must be born again. And he's not talking about baptism, people. He's talking about we've got to have a heart transplant. We've got to have a heart transplant. We've got to make that change in America. Boy, that gets me riled up. But let me settle myself down because we want to move forward with some other things that we want to cover today. And but just want to give our props here for the great contributions of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So this is a major transition here. We had the Tennessee Titans versus the Kansas City Chiefs, and wasn't that something? Well, it really was. I'm going to admit, I'm going to be real transparent here. I was surprised when the Titans even won the opportunity to be in the AFC Championship game. I'm a Titans fan, but I was surprised. That was a nail biter for me. So we're certainly in prayer for some of those people who did get a chance to go down to the AFC Championship game, and praying safe travels to you, those who are still trying to make it back home to Nashville. It was the Titans' first AFC Championship appearance since 2002. And, well, we got Super Bowl coming up, Super Bowl 54. That will be on February the 2nd. Of course, every year in Nashville, we have a shortage of chicken wings because all the stores run out. But a lot of people are going to try to make it down to Miami Gardens, Florida, for that Super Bowl game. I'm wondering how many of you would actually go to the Super Bowl if somebody just gave you a ticket. Now, I looked online. I did a little research to see how much those tickets cost. Somebody told me $1,000. I don't know how true that was, because every site I looked at, the lowest I found was $3,669. And they went all the way up to, get this, $485,750. Then I had to dig a little deeper on that last one, because I thought, who's going to pay almost $500,000 for a ticket to one football game? That is actually the absolute best seat in the house, and it's actually a suite, so it's more than one seat, but that still wouldn't do it for me. Anyway, so if you were able to get your hands on a ticket as low as, which is the lowest, $3,669, would you actually go, or would you do what the scalpers do? Pump up the price a little bit and try to sell it, or just try to get what you got it for, $3,669. Well, actually, if you got it free, you didn't pay a dime for it. But anyway, I don't know. I asked one person, and this particular person said, shoot, I would sell it. I'd probably still go down there, hang out in the hotels, enjoy the fun, but I would get that money. So anyway, there's that. Kudos to the Nashville International Airport. They have set a passenger record. They had about 20 million the last time they tracked how many passengers came through the airport. This year, they topped that 20 million by almost 2 million. So the IT city is really doing its thing. I don't know if that's good news, bad news. Well, it's good news for the economy. But my question would be, are they staying? Are they coming through and visiting and leaving, and just pumping a little bit of money into the economy? Or are they just coming through on business, or are they moving here? I don't know. It's been, I want you to, speaking of which, I know I'm hopping around a little bit, but I want to get it all in. I want you to put February the 11th on your calendar. Save that date. February the 11th is going to be the 1-year anniversary of Your Turn. And we got some special plans, some up close and personal, live and in living color plans for us to be together for that particular day on February the 11th. So I want you to save that date. You know, this show airs from 4 to 5 p.m. We'll probably do an extended something using a combination of live on air and Facebook Live, something like 4 to 6, maybe even 4 to 7, who knows. But I want you to save that date. If you work between those hours of 4 to 7, just say to your boss on February the 11th, I got to go be with Sherre Bishop in 760 a.m. for Your Turn. It's the 1-year anniversary. And who wants to be anywhere else? So put that on your calendar. Let me tell you why else it's important, more than just being there with little old me. The other reason why it's important is because we're going to get up close and personal and talk about some issues that we've been dealing with in our city and in our community, particularly on Jefferson Street. You've heard about it. A lot of the places that we know and go to have closed, Knockout Wings, and there have been a few other places that have closed, and we're going to talk about that. And there's also some talk that's not so positive about how some of us are received on Broadway and the Gulch and some of the areas that seem to be attracting those people who have relocated to the It City. Is the It City for everybody? So we're going to get chatted up about some of those things. And this is the time and point in which we become empowered because we gain new knowledge. And again, as I've always talked about, I always say, your turn is your turn to lift your voice and speak your truth so that we can become a more informed community, a more active community, and a more collaborative community. So February the 11th, that 1-year anniversary date, is the date when we will collaborate and we will get together to talk about all this stuff I've been talking about and become empowered to see how we want to respond to some of the things that are taking place that are positive and some of those things that are not so positive and some things that are taking place behind closed doors that's going to affect how we live, where we live, what we eat, and what we get to do. And we have to talk to one another about it. So put February the 11th on your calendar. Tell somebody. Watch my Facebook page. I'm going to keep you posted there, and I'm going to try to keep it on the air here, and I'm going to post it everywhere I can post it. Instagram, all over social media. Just keep posted about February the 11th, okay? All right, I beat that horse to death. But let's see, I want to bring up a couple other things, the real ID and then the impeachment, and then we'll talk about the addiction concern I have. This real ID that we're supposed to have, somebody wanted me to get more information on that and share it with you, and I'm going to do that right now. Well, beginning October the 1st, 2020, everyone must have a real ID license. That real ID license is what you have to get access into federal buildings, or military bases, nuclear facilities, or to board a commercial flight within the United States. You'll have to have the real ID. It has a gold circle with a star in the middle of it, a little white star in the middle in the upper right corner. Of course, now you don't need it to drive, to vote, or to go to federal court or purchase alcohol or cigarettes. But you will need it if you're going to be boarding a flight. So if you got a flight planned for any time after October the 1st and you haven't gone and gotten that real ID, you're going to have some frustration at the airport, ma'am and sir. So you do want to take care of that. They've not had good publicity about taking care of this real ID situation They've had long lines at the driver service locations, you call them. They've had long lines. We're down to less than probably about 9 months left to get this done. And they're having real problems through the Department of Safety with getting people through this. They've had long lines of some people waiting up to an hour to try and get this done. You got 40% of the residents still needing to do this, and there are we got about 47 driver service citizens throughout the state, but they've been having some real complaints and some real problems. And I think Senator Becky Massey out of Knoxville, she chairs the Transportation and Safety Committee. And she said, a lot of the technology that they needed to do this in a more expeditious manner is not in place. And so they're just trying to do the best that they can. So it's been a learning curve for them, too. Since the Real ID started, less than 500,000 people who have renewed their license got the Real ID. So now, because of that, people like you and me, me included. Wait times at the service centers have gone from a half hour to well over an hour. And I did a little bit of checking and found out that some of the county clerk offices offer the real ID. But of course, now once I say that, and once other people have shared that, now they're seeing long lines. So there's that. I want to get that in, though. I just would hate to see somebody get to the airport, say the day after the deadline, which is October the 1st. You get to the airport and you haven't remembered to get your real ID. And there you are at the airport about to miss your flight off to a conference or a vacation or job related something. You get in trouble because you procrastinated and didn't get that. So as you know, I try to make sure that Your Turn is your place to go to, and you can count on us to get information to you about what you need to know. And that's why I want to put that out there. Okay, the impeachment process. Let's talk about that before we get to our last topic. There's a lot going on there. Before I talk about it, though, if you watched the debate last week, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, all of these debates, there's always a kind of a headline that comes out of it. One of the debates, the headline that came out of it was when Kamala Harris and Joe Biden had a bit of a run-in about busing. And then there was a little something with Buttigieg where he kind of really showed his strengths during that particular debate. Well, this time it's Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. They had a sort of a heated exchange, a back and forth. I guess you could call it a tense confrontation. Elizabeth Warren was trying to make a point about whether a woman can win the White House. And Elizabeth Warren believes that Bernie Sanders made a statement about that, a negative statement about that in the past. Sanders said he didn't say that. And after the debate, a CNN backup microphone caught a little soundbite that they didn't mean to get out there, but it did. And let me play a little clip of it for you.
I think you called me a liar on national TV.
What?
I think you called me a liar on national TV.
Let's not do it right now. You want to have that discussion, we'll have that discussion. You called me a liar. You told me. All right, let's not do it.
I don't want to get in the middle. I just want to say hi, Bernie.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Now, our last topic that I want to get to is addiction. Countless people have fallen under this non-discriminating web of addiction. Addiction knows no race, no gender, no socioeconomic status. It is prevalent in this country and all over among actors, musicians, movie stars, down to community members, teenagers, seniors, comedians, film directors, musicians, movie stars. So imagine for celebrities, even though you have all this money and you can do anything you want to do with it, but you decide to use drugs. You know, it's something to fathom. One celebrity that I'd interviewed before said, well, I write more creatively when I'm high. And then there's the effect of celebrity, the fans, the acceptance as a valuable human being who's affecting the masses, who's gifted and the people love it. And you sort of get on a high on that. And then when it doesn't go the way you expect it, then they try to medicate. But now imagine this, consider the average person, a person like you and I, basically living a normal life, just trying to live your best life from day to day. So, I mean, no one, and I will argue this toe to toe with anybody, no human being comes out of the womb, grows to a specific age when they're able to talk, says, I want to be an addict. No one. Life happens to us. How does it happen? Peer pressure. Some addicts I've talked to went through some sort of traumatic loss or traumatic experience, grief, loneliness. Some just have poor coping skills with the things that they are exposed to in the world, in the home, financial pressures. And I asked one of the experts, is drug addiction a disease or a disorder? And he said, well, just like any other addiction, drug addiction is caused by one of these three things: behavioral, biological, or environmental factors. And because of that, because it's caused by one of these three factors, it's a disease, not a disorder. So people are addicted to sex, fast food, plastic surgery, internet gaming, guns, compulsive lying, exercise addiction. I probably need to be addicted to exercise these days after the holidays. But a love addiction, shopping, chocolate, that would be me. And then there's the drug addiction. And that's what I want to cap the rest of our time here today with, talking about this problem with drug addiction. In Tennessee alone, 17.9% have alcohol dependence or abuse problems. 23.1 million have treatment for illicit substance or alcohol abuse. And that's 9.1% of all Americans. 9% of Americans need treatment for substance abuse, are receiving it, and that leaves 20.5 million still in need. And those are stats from the American Addiction Center. And just in case, I'm going to get inside the head of a person who went through addiction for more than 20 years, I believe 30 years. We'll ask her when we talk to her. But if just in case you don't listen to the end, I want to go ahead and give you some resources. If you or if someone you know is dealing with drug addiction, they have some assistance for you through Centerstone. You can look that up on the internet. There's also the Elam Mental Health Center over on D.B. Todd Boulevard at Meharry Medical College. That's a great resource for you because they can deal with some of the things that come with addiction, mental illness, and some of those things. So contact them over at the Elam Mental Health Center over at Meharry Medical College on D.B. Todd Boulevard. If you are in Murfreesboro, there's Journey Pure. You can contact them. Cornerstone in Louisville, Tennessee. I've never heard of Louisville, Tennessee, but there is a Louisville, Tennessee, apparently. It's called Cornerstone of Recovery. And let me give you a number, just in case you don't listen to the end. The number that you can call to the drug addiction centers, and they can refer you to where you need based on what you need. That's 877-978-2319. Let me give you that number two more times. 877-978-2319. Last time, and if you miss it, just Google drug addiction centers. So it's 877-978-2319. And you can also try Centerstone as well. Now, after we've talked about addiction, some of these startling stats of how people are struggling with so many things. And I get that. I get that whole conversation with the world that we live in today, all the things that we're faced with, all the things that we're dealing with. And it's hard. And being a Christian, being a believer, I really can't imagine what life is like for someone who has no faith, who doesn't know the Lord, and has no higher power or nothing to believe in, no strength. I don't know how you make it. I don't know how anybody would cope. I know I couldn't. But, that's my story and I'm sticking with it. But nevertheless, I wanted to talk to someone who'd actually been through addiction to find out, because as family members, as parents, we want to talk to them. We want to fix it for them. And now I want to shift gears a little bit and talk to a lady with a phenomenal story. Her name is Anita Strange Rebecki, and she's in the Windy City of Chicago. Hey, Anita.
Hello, Sherry.
I want to know a little bit more about your story because you have a phenomenal story. I've been reading, you've been going to school, you've been getting all these degrees and traveling, but that was not always your life.
No, I started getting high at about 20, smoking cocaine. And then my mother passed, and I just hit a downward spiral. And I was a functioning addict for some years. Had my son in private school, and I was functioning, but barely. And then I just hit rock bottom and became homeless. And I was homeless for 10 years. And then, so I was homeless all of my 30s. And when I turned 40, I got clean and sober and got married. But when I was homeless, I slept under viaducts. I was homeless.
Did you feel, how did you feel when you were homeless? Did you feel like it was a choice that you made, or did you feel like there was somebody out there that loved you? Were you thinking about God? I mean, what was going on inside?
When I was homeless, all I honestly thought about was getting high, and I thought about my family and the people that I had kind of left behind and didn't know where I was, who were worried about me and concerned about me, but my main focus during those 10 years of homelessness was getting high. And I just put everything else on the back burner. You know, when you don't have any bills, when you don't have any cares or any concerns or any responsibilities, it's easy to get lost in that.
But how easy was it to get drugs if you didn't have money? You didn't have a job, obviously, because you were homeless.
But, well, I panhandled for 10 years.
Wow.
I panhandled, and I was very, very good at it. I've always had a gift for gab. I've always been a nice person. You know, I was a nice homeless panhandler.
I've never heard it put that way, Anita. A nice homeless panhandler. Okay.
You know, I never threatened anybody. People gave me books. I used to read a lot when I was homeless. People would bring me clothes. I would pass out Christmas cards. I would go to the dollar store and buy construction paper and pass out Christmas cards. And people were nice to me, you know, and I survived. Thank goodness.
You did. Did you encounter any health problems behind all of that?
Yes, I have arthritis throughout my body. I need a hip replacement and a knee replacement. I don't know which one is going to come first. I have arthritis in my back from being out in the cold for so many years.
And Chicago is cold, crying cold.
Yes, I lost my eye. Actually, I didn't lose my eye from being homeless. I lost my eye because someone hit me in it and just shattered it while I was getting high.
Wow, that's awful. All right, in case you just tuned in, you're listening to Your Turn. I'm Sherre Miller Bishop, your host. My guest is someone who spent many years as a drug addict, Anita Strange-Rebecki. We got to pause here for a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to find out when did she have that aha moment, that moment when she knew she had to do something different. We'll be right back. Does your home need a complete makeover? There's a guy who can make it affordable for your home improvement. Are you ready for this? Look at the before and after. It's like magic. Let Jeff R. come and put a new spin, give your home a new leash on life. It's awesome. From kitchen cabinetry to flooring to painting, whatever it needs to give your home that extreme makeover, just call Jeff R. You can reach him. He's a master craftsman. He will tell you what you need. He'll be honest with you, and he cleans up when he finishes. The number is 615-589-3667. That's 615-589-3667. Don't procrastinate. Don't wait. Get your hardwood floors in. Get your carpets placed. Get your walls painted. Bring a master craftsman in. You don't have to watch any more of the DIY shows. He lives right here in Nashville, Tennessee. Give him a call, 615-589-3667. You dream it, you'll make it happen. 615-589-3667. Hey, you still there? We're still here. We're talking with Anita Strange Rebecca. She spent many years on drugs in the streets, and she has a phenomenal story. And she even lost her eyesight at some points, had some serious eye challenges. And we're going to find out a little bit more about what's going on with her when she had that aha moment, when she knew she had to do something different. So you were on drugs up until you were 40. What changed and what happened at 40?
At 40, I was starting to get tired of being sick and tired, as they say. And I met this Italian gentleman that used to give me, he never had any change, but he would give me cigarettes. And one day he invited me to his house, and I had been up like days. And I went to his house, and I took off, and it was winter, and I had on 1,000 layers of clothes. And as I was taking off these clothes, he thought I was a man because I was looking rather ratchet. But anyway, then he got scared. But anyway, he fed me and let me sleep for 3 days. Every time I woke up, I ate. It was a sandwich there. And we ended up staying together, getting clean and sober together because he was an alcoholic. We ended up getting clean and sober together, and we got married.
So are you still married today to him?
He passed. He passed 12 years ago. But if he had not passed, we'd still be married.
So
he was a genuinely good guy.
So you have a lot to be thankful for. Where's your faith now? Because I hear sometimes with people who have been addicted to drugs that traumatic things that happen can be a trigger, but then just hearing a certain song on the radio can be a trigger. How hard was that for you with losing your husband?
It was when Joe passed. I had a restaurant. And I would work 12-hour days and just come home and fall into the bed and get up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock and go straight back to work.
So you hid behind busy?
Yeah, so I just kept busy and I did that for about at least 2 years after he passed. And then I decided that I was going back to school. I went back to school, got my undergrad degree in sociology, and then I got my master's in social work. Wow. And I'm Episcopalian, a lifelong, a cradle Episcopalian. And I go to church on a regular basis. But my thing is, I just will never, ever lose everything because of something like an addiction. If I do lose everything, it'll be because I may have made some bad decisions, or just a financial crisis, or health reasons, but it won't be because of an addiction. Because I lost everything. And it took me 20 years to build my life back up to where it's at.
Did you have to build relationships?
I just had determination, honestly, and faith.
Did you have to build relationships?
Well, I was fortunate. I was fortunate in the fact that I had a very good educational foundation. I had lifelong childhood friends from kindergarten because I went to a small private school, and I had just made good friends. So when I came back on the scene sober, my friends honestly were very happy to see me. When I called them out of the blue, about 5 of them came to see me. Like that day I called them crying. They were just so happy that I was okay and that I was back. And so I really didn't have a problem mending my relationships.
What about you mentioned friends, what about with family? Your mother had passed by then, correct?
Yes. I didn't really have a problem with family either. I guess some were leery, but when you go through the 12 steps, you try to make amends, and then if those people don't allow you to, you have to go on and move on. I just really never had those problems.
So what would you say to, here on this Thanksgiving Day, what would you say to those people that are listening now about what you are most thankful for?
Well, I'm most thankful for my sobriety, but I'm most thankful for my family, my kids. I'm most thankful for my kids. I am most thankful that I have a loving family that has supported me in every step of the way, as I have supported them once I got clean and sober. And I'm thankful that I can live a upright life and be responsible. And the thing about being clean and sober, sometimes when you hit rock bottom, you think because you have got sunken so low in your life that it is just going to be so hard to start over. Because that's where I was. I can't start over. How am I do all that? But when you start and take that first step, everything else will fall in place.
Kind of like you make one step and God will make two.
That's right. Everything else will keep working for you if you just constantly keep making a step, one step at a time. That's just how you have to look at it. And there might be some setbacks, but you just have to look at it as I'm trying. I'm doing my best. And that's just the attitude I took. And thank goodness I never had any setbacks in the drug world.
Go ahead.
I said I think I was too stubborn. I just wasn't going to go back there.
Well, you do in anything when you do a 360, you do have to have a made up mind, and gratitude for being able to get out of it does take you a long way because you have a greater appreciation for it. Yes,
and so I try to. They don't know how to talk to their family members that are on drugs, or how to approach them, or what steps to take.
I've heard a lot of things. A lot of people say that about families with, they're thankful that person is alive who's addicted to drugs, but they don't know how to talk to them. They don't know how to get them to stop and how to bring them out. Could someone have talked to you when you were in your 30s and you were addicted to say, hey, you got to stop this? Would you have listened? How do you talk to someone who's addicted? What do you do?
Well, when I was homeless, many people prayed over me. Many people prayed over me. They prayed over me. They gave me money, and I went straight to get some drugs. I was appreciative of the prayers, but I wasn't really hearing them. Many people tried to help me, and I wasn't ready for help. Most of the times, a person just really has to hit rock bottom, and they have to be ready for the help.
Wow, so it's an inside job.
Right. How much you force it on them, they have to be ready for that help. Because I'm telling you, tons of people tried to help me, but I wasn't ready to hear it. I wasn't ready to stop. So it just fell on deaf ears.
And I'm always...
Until I was ready.
I tried to when I did a little bit of research on addiction, I was trying to understand. At first, you would think that somebody who ends up addicted to drugs is somebody who maybe has gone through a bad experience with something, or somebody who's living in abject poverty and they don't have anything, they don't have love, they don't have anything, and they reach out for the wrong things. What was your why?
My why was I was just wanting to be popular, live in the fast lane, So I had already started getting high when my mother became sick, and it just spiraled.
So you had started getting high when your mother became sick. What were your emotions? Were you afraid and it was a way to medicate yourself?
It was a way to medicate myself, and I was just trying to fit into an in crowd, what I thought was the in crowd. So it was both. It was two different things.
I see.
I was trying to image play, and I wasn't ready.
I hear you.
I wasn't ready. But what you said about sometimes people being in abject poverty and you sometimes people, if you don't know, they're saying if you don't know better, you can't do better. When I was in my addiction and I was going in and out of jail for little minor stuff, I would see women who had never had a chance. They didn't know any better. And that helped me realize that I knew better. I knew better. But some people, this is what some of this is systemic. This is generational, especially in the black community. Sometimes drugs is generational. They come from a dysfunctional family where they never eat together, they never pray together. Their parents don't really focus on their education. And so they don't know any better, But I knew better. So that helped me realize that I knew better and I could do better.
But when you were in it, you didn't know better. And so you didn't do better because you didn't know better. Well, wait, let me back it up. You said that you knew better. But so why did you get into it? If you say that you knew better, or was it a situation where you said earlier that you wanted acceptance, you were medicating yourself to deal with your mother who was very, very ill, and did the addiction take a hold on you before you were able to realize, hey, I know better?
No, I always knew better. But I enjoyed the high.
Okay, that's honest.
What an addiction is. You enjoy the high. Just like people that are addicted to food. They like eating. People that love shopping. They know better.
I've heard that people replace one thing that brings them comfort with something else. I knew of someone who was an alcoholic, and when he stopped drinking, he smoked more cigarettes. What gives you comfort now?
Well, what gives me comfort right now is my new business venture, Jazz in Bronzeville. I promote jazz and blues here in Chicago. It's on hiatus right now because I'm moving. Mm-hmm. But I plan to come back in the summer and do it for 3 months during the summer months here in Chicago.
And so you're promoting, what's involved with the business?
It's called Jasmine in Bronzeville. Bronzeville is a black community in Chicago. And I live in Bronzeville, so I do Jasmine in Bronzeville. We do a monthly concert alternating a blues artist and a jazz artist every other month.
That is
I have some of the top jazz and blues artists in Chicago perform at my venue.
And so you own a business.
Yes. Yes, I don't own a venue, but I own a business and I rent a venue.
Okay, I see. Wow, you have done so many things, and I don't know if the listeners heard you earlier say that during your addiction, you got hit in the eye and you lost one of your eyes, so you are visually impaired, and you have not allowed that to stop you from going and getting, how many degrees did you get?
I went back at, I think I'm 52 years old. I went and finished my undergrad, and then I continued on and got my master's in social work. And I love to travel, so.
I was going to say, and I see on Facebook, you. I'm not talking about taking a trip to Kansas City.
I've been to China. I've been to Cuba. I've been to almost every island. I've been to France. I studied in France for a month when I was in undergrad. I was the oldest person there, but I did it.
Amazing, amazing. Well, listen, it's Thanksgiving Day. Can you leave a special word of encouragement, advice for someone, one of our listeners who has spoken about a loved one that kind of comes and goes in her life? She's a parent, comes and goes in her life, and she's addicted, and she'll come around to beg her for a little something, something. What kind of word of encouragement can you leave her with as we close?
Well, my word of encouragement would be to continue to love them, but not to enable them. It doesn't work both ways. You cannot continue to enable a person in an addiction, because you just make it worse. You just really have to practice tough love and pray on it. Because a person that's in an addiction has to want to change. You can't change them. They have to reach that point themselves. You can encourage them and give them support, but not financially. Feed them, yes, but don't give them financial support. That's my word of encouragement.
All right.
Because it will never stop the cycle.
Right, and you're continuing the cycle when you are enabling.
Right, when you enable them, that you're helping the cycle. Yeah.
All right, and so final word on what you're thankful for.
I am thankful for my sobriety and my kids and my family.
All right.
That's what I'm for.
And we are thankful for your willingness to share your story here on Your Turn. And we're so thankful for your courage and your determination and your steely resolve, despite addiction, despite fighting your way out of addiction, and despite visual impairment and having to rebuild your life and your relationships. You did it, and you traveled, and you got all these degrees, and you are doing it, sister.
You know, Sherry, I actually spoke at the mental health department in Nashville about 3 years ago.
Wow, and I didn't know that you had been in Nashville.
Yeah,
I just can't tell you how grateful I am for your story, though. I mean, it's just an amazing, amazing, amazing story. So what's next?
Well, I'm about to move to Nashville. Hopefully by January, I'm going to sell my property here. I want to be close to my daughter, who's been there for 15 years, and my grandkids.
Amazing.
So that's what's next, and I might just work on a PhD. I don't know.
Well, I must forewarn you, you will not be leaving the Chicago traffic when you come to Nashville. All right. Anita Strange, Rebecca. Anita, thank you so much for sharing with us here on Your Turn.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Great insight on addiction. Well, as we come to a close here, we've gotten a lot in a short amount of time. I want to close on this Martin Luther King holiday with an excerpt from Dr. King's "I've Been to the Mountaintop" speech, which he gave on April 3rd of 1968. In this excerpt, he speaks of letters he received after being stabbed by a deranged woman during a book signing.
Said simply, "Dear Dr. King, I am a 9th grade student at the White Plains High School." She said, "While it should not matter, I would like to mention that I'm a white girl. I read in the paper of your misfortune and of your suffering. And I read that if you had sneezed, you would have died. And I'm simply writing you to say that I'm so happy that you didn't sneeze. And I want to say tonight, that I too am happy that I didn't sneeze, because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1960 when students all over the South started sitting in at lunch counters. And I knew that as they were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream and taking the whole nation back to those great wells of democracy which were dug deep by the founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. If I had sneezed.
And that's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on this MLK national holiday. I hope you've enjoyed today's show, today's edition of Your Turn, and talking with Anita Strange-Rebecki about her addiction. And I know you're wondering, well, why did we talked about a lot of things today. Why cap this with addiction? Well, when we look back over our news headlines, I think that it's more important than ever to ask questions. Why are we in the state that we're in? Why are people on drugs? Why are people reaching out to medicate themselves, to numb themselves? Why is our world in the state that it's in? It used to be a time when you could turn to the church, and that was sort of like your balm in Gilead. Now your balm in Gilead is who it has always been, or at least should be, and that's Jesus Christ. It's not in man. But it is a turnoff, I'm sure, for those new believers or those would-be believers who are looking at the things that are going on in our world and the things that are going on in the church. I was reading just last week about a proposed church split that's following a long dispute. The United Methodist Church for decades has had an ongoing push to lift the denomination's ban on same-sex marriage and LGBTQ clergy. And the United Methodists, who have a more traditionalist view, they're fighting about that, and it's a long-running thing. They've been having sessions about this, and it's a controversial thing. So you look at the infighting in the churches. There was a pastor that used to be here in Nashville, Tennessee. He was actually a professor out at TSU, and he's in Indianapolis. He simply said he was burned out, and he's stepping down. I mean, look at what's happening. Look, just scan and look at our news headlines now. You have, even in our so-called it city, we've got a struggle now going on with our budget. Well, how are we going to handle our budget? What's going on with our budget? We're having to do cutbacks. There was a plan even to make some increases in various things. We weren't able to do it. And we look back at the headlines just from the past year. The teachers had gone on strike, and our new mayor said, well, they're at least going to get their 3%. But do they deserve more? Yes. I mean, they are shaping our kids, and our kids are the future. You got so much infighting. The Belmont land deal, there's some questions being raised about that. You have so many things going on. And then on the national scene, a whole lot has been written about the Democratic recession around the world. The U.S. has been kind of shirking its traditional role as an advocate for freedom, with China and Russia pressing their authoritarian models and all this entitlement around us. And that's one of the good things that happened in this past year. The people rose up. They spoke against the corruption. They spoke against some of the things that were not fair to those who deserve justice and equality, often at great risk, against great odds. But I know that it will go down in history at some of those who were courageous enough to step forward. Remember back in November, in its 400-year history, fewer than 100 women have been elected to the General Assembly, as against more than 9,000 men. 41 of those women will now be among the 140 lawmakers who convened in Richmond. They convened in Richmond just this month. So it's just, it's a powerful thing. Women occupy two of the most powerful positions, the Speaker and the Majority Leader, in the House of Delegates. We have a record number of women who took their seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. A lot of great things have happened. And history is going to remember former Russia advisor Fiona Hill, Army Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, former Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch, and others for stepping forward to do their duty in a very, very difficult time. But as we look back against the backdrop of this King holiday, look at all the headlines, the stuff that's going on around us, not only in our city with gentrification. Gentrification is alive and well in cities across this country. People are struggling to eat. They can't afford to get sick, can't afford to pay for their medication. And then some of the more interesting stories are Kanye West. He is set to headline a massive prayer rally with the anti-LGBTQ pastors and activists. And he's been supported, though, by national pastors. Joel Osteen, he's made a lot of friends. He's had some enemies. And they're calling this thing that's going to be in Chicago the first epic evangelical stadium event of the decade. It's going to be called Awaken 2020. I like that name because a lot of us need to wake up. In fact, we need to stay woke. And that's what King was talking about. I'm bringing it up on this King holiday. That's what he was talking about us lifting our voices, speaking our truth. Of course, his platform was one of nonviolent social change, but nevertheless, he was still pushing the idea of us being more vocal, being more active, and woke, awakened to what's going on in our world. We're still looking for another Dr. Martin Luther King. We're still looking for another leader, but the leadership begins with us. Just like they said about the walking on the moon, one bold step for man. I mean, it takes one step, one person to step forward, and it takes each of us. It begins within you. It begins within me. And as Elijah Cummings asked, our grandchildren years from now will ask, what did you do? What are you going to do? How are you going to represent? So all I'm saying is, on this King holiday, let's try to recommit to change in our world, to lift our voices and speak our truths. Make sure you put Tuesday, February the 11th, the 1-year anniversary of Your Turn, on your calendar, and keep listening to the show to find out more about where it's going to be, what to do, and all of that good stuff. Not going to cost you anything. Just want you to have your face in the place. That's going to do it for today's edition of Your Turn. I'm Sherre Bishop. Remember, be true to the one in the mirror. God made you in his image. Now you go represent. Dr. Bobby Jones is up next. I'm Sherre Miller Bishop. This has been Your Turn.